Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a singer, songwriter, music educator as well. I've been involved in many different aspects of music in Trinidad and Tobago, in terms of the cultural seasons that we have. For example, the most popular being Christmas with Parang season, Carnival season with Calypso and Soca. Of course, I am passionate about many different styles of music. So as a result, it's kind of hard to stay in one genre, throughout the year.
That's one of the things that I think stood out most about you. I have never in my life, I know artists love to pride themselves in being versatile, but I must say, you do it all from parang to heavy metal to R&B. You have such versatility. And I notice you refer to yourself as an anomaly. Can you say a little bit about the intention behind being an anomaly as an artist?
Well, put simply, the idea that every artist is unique, just like every person is unique. I've given a lot of thought to that. And it's not that I want to particularly stand out, even though, I mean, everybody wants to stand out, right? The thing is that when it comes to my music or the approach that I take to music, it's really about the way in which I combine the different genres or how I express them through my music or through exploring a different arrangement of a popular song, for example. And in terms of the music that I write, my intention is to um, provide a space for people who can relate, to the experiences that we all share and, guide them towards the path of healing themselves. So the first step is really just acknowledging that you are going through this thing and you are not alone. And, trying to sit with it, deal with it, and figure out a way forward, which is all part of the healing process.
Around what age did you decide to become serious about music, and what was that realization like?
Well, I can't remember which age it was, honestly, but I know it was within the last 7 years. I was working and going to school at the same time. I was also, pursuing different opportunities that came to me with regards to music. And I recall that I was given an opportunity to record my first album. It actually, the idea came from starting to record a single, and the offer was made to, take it much further because I had written a lot of songs by then. And, I would only dream of one day hearing them recorded. And I never really found that music had a place for me full time because I was trying to find balance. I was pursuing so many different things at once. And it was actually during that shift um, that propelled me away from the typical work approach, which, I suppose you would call the 9 to 5 jobs out there. Um, I felt a shift away from that because there was some challenges with my health, and I had to, navigate them while still trying to keep things afloat in my personal life. So I felt that if I had to stick with one thing, which was very tough for me to do, being a person of many interests, I felt that music was definitely the way I should go. But it still didn't settle until the last few years, to be quite honest, because of the way in which I was able to pursue it after, figuring out the health concerns that arose.
Okay, so you're making mention to health. May is the, I know this because I saw it on your status. May is the, can you say the condition? I can't pronounce it too well.
It's called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Right.
So May
Yes,
is the month for Ehlers-Danlos syndrome awareness.
yes, please. So can you say a bit about I know you say because of the health experiences, it affected the career path that you chose, but even in music, how do you manage living with the condition and still growing your music platform at the same time?
It honestly is very tough because I find it difficult to know what to expect. I can keep, well, anyone could plan. You could plan for the next few months, you could plan for what you're going to do for the week. But at the end of it, you also have to recognize that problems can arise at any given time. And so I can keep, I suppose, the idea of what my expectations will be without hopefully feeling too bad about not being productive. It is a constant effort to keep active on social media, especially being a creative person, coming up with new ideas and matching them with who I am as a person and the type of persona that I'm trying to portray as an artist. Um, I've gravitated away from a lot of ideas that way, I can tell you for sure. But in terms of managing the health and still maintaining that balance, it's one that I am experiencing a lot of different forces, one pulling me and pushing me, towards various things. And sometimes the ideas come together, sometimes it's outright frustrating, as many creatives would relate to. But I don't give up easily
Yeah.
and I stay self-motivated. So I try to come up with new ideas all the time, even if they are bad ideas. So I don't turn anything away, basically.
So for people who are not aware of the condition, can you say a bit about what it is and its impact?
Yes, so Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is a heritable group of connective tissue disorders. Basically, what that means is that the collagen in the body on a cellular level is faulty. So collagen is produced in your body at the DNA level, and the way that it's produced, it doesn't function the way it's supposed to. And collagen is the building block for connective tissue, which in turn, helps to maintain your muscles, joints, nerves, your organs, tendons, ligaments, and that sort of thing. So when you think about how many different ways it can negatively affect the body by not being able to function as it should, you end up with many disorders, many comorbidities that can result from the same. And the strange thing is that it doesn't express itself exactly the same in each person who has the condition. But there are many themes that are consistent. For example, joint pain, chronic pain in general, joint instability to the point of having full or partial dislocations, and rapid weight gain, weight loss. Sometimes it's easy bruising, many other conditions you wouldn't think are related to it, like migraines, anxiety, and then there tend to be more serious conditions associated with it. There are 13 different subtypes, and some of them can be fatal, but most of them aren't. The type that I'm suspected to have is hypermobility type EDS for short. And it's the type that they actually don't know which collagen protein causes it because there's a different one in each case for each of the subtypes. And so it's the most difficult one to navigate.
Yes. And I think knowing that would give a lot of empathy to those living with the condition because a lot of times we see people going about their day creating amazing music and you have no idea what they're coping with in the background. And what I notice about
Exactly.
you is a lot of your personal experiences and challenges spill over into your music. So can you speak about why that is, like your songwriting process, and why is it that basically your message of healing always finds place into every project that you do?
Well, if you allow me to start with the healing aspect first, it for me it's more than just talking about my experiences. It's more of a spiritual thing because I'm a very spiritual person, not more so religious, but because I feel so connected with many different things, it's easy for me to relate to other people. You mentioned being empathic, and that's something I 100% relate to. And as a result, I figured that, regardless of what any person is going through, um, we should be able to find a way to come out of, what we're going through without remaining in that state of permanence. Because it does affect your quality of life on a daily basis. And with regards to having the experiences with the disease and having it being reflected in music, um, sometimes it does play a role in terms of how I am able to express myself in the music. So, for example, there is a relationship between pain and anxiety, and with stress being the trigger. So if I'm extremely stressed out and that's my stress levels kind of builds my anxiety to the extent where I'm feeling a lot of pain, then I have to find a way to express it. I have to find a way to relieve that stress. And because I am in that creative space, it means therefore that I have to channel that energy, that pain, that emotion, the emotions attached into my performance. And if people come up to me and say, wow, I really felt that, or there are some instances where people have been crying in, in the midst of my performances, and it really touched me because not that I like making people cry, but at the same time, um, I like knowing that I've had a profound impact, that you're able to, on some level, relate to my experience because you see that part, some part of that experience within yourself. And it takes many different forms as well. And lots of people don't know that when I perform, I'm in pain most of the time. Not just the emotional pain that I'm speaking about within my songs, but physical pain from maybe standing too long or from, the chronic fatigue or any of the issues that I may be experiencing on the day. And most of the time, nobody can tell. And that's just par for the course because of the way that the condition expresses itself.
Yes. So I know you had a launch concert for your EP Soul Dive. That was
Yes,
last year, last May.
yes.
Are you having more
Actually,
shows soon?
yes, I will be. This month, I don't have any shows, but the next month I'll be taking part in a 2-day festival called Before the Rain. So that will be on June the 29th at Cafe Blue in Port of Spain. And I may have a couple of events before, like either before or after that. Maybe making an appearance at Trotta's restaurant at Gulf City Mall, San Fernando, and I'm looking forward to any other shows that are coming up. Actually, because I teach music, the school that I teach at, Drum Varsity, requires me to, participate in the school concerts and any of the external events that we may have. So I've even taken to being the mistress of ceremonies of sorts for some of the events, which is quite a new experience for me. And also preparing my students for their performances in the school concerts. So I'm definitely looking forward to those as well, which will be taking place between the beginning of June and the beginning of July.
Okay, so I want to touch a bit more on what you said a few moments ago about capturing the emotional side. And I find that Soul Dive Volume 1 does just that. A lot of the tracks really explores the human condition. Can you speak a bit more about the themes that you addressed in this album and why?
Okay, so in the process, you would notice first, let me say that the track listing, right? There's a specific order with the titles of the songs, and actually, there's sort of inside joke that my producer and I had between ourselves. that the first track should be called the end and the last track should be called the beginning.
I noticed
Um,
that.
yes, and of course there's January Situation, which is my first release, my first single and music video release. Um, the EP itself tells a story, and while we didn't choose the songs in a particular way to tell that story, the themes that were explored and the way that the story is told, um, it ironically just ended up in a way where we felt that it was perfect. We didn't need to do any more. So the end, the first track, the end talks about, the love and loss that I experienced. Actually, it was a relationship that I had to walk away from for the health of myself and for the other person involved. And on my part, there was no animosity. It was just having outgrown the situation and, acknowledging that we may not have to be friends, but we can be civil towards each other. We can be our humane side instead of carrying any sort of animosity. And unfortunately, you can't rely on other people to reciprocate that way of thinking. But I left it out there because that's part of who I am as a person. I try to maintain peace. Maybe not do too much people pleasing, but at the same time, I want you to know that we can be better, you know. And it actually wrote that song when I was doing a songwriting mentorship program in 2015 with the late Dr. Winsford Devine. He was famous in Trinidad for having written a lot of the Mighty Sparrows, calypsos, and for a few other calypsonians over the years. So it was a profound experience, and the emotional charge that comes with that song um, is one that I've had to steel myself for during performances because I may break down afterwards. January Situation is a track that I've written out of, how to put it, some sort of subconscious curiosity about the new year starting with new beginnings and what that meant. Because when I was growing up, there was a lot of emphasis on New Year's resolution. And I felt like I couldn't really understand it because we make these goals and we're not really sure to meet them. And then we have to sort of take accountability for them. And I just didn't know where it was going. But I literally woke up out of a dream with that song in mind. And I just had to write it down. It was written like the day after New Year's Day. Went to the band room and I performed it with the band I was in an amateur band at the time, so we just jammed the song and there was only one verse and chorus, but I completed the song with two more verses during the mentorship program that I did. And so wow, there have been a lot of themes explored, and even though the songs are not listed according to the order in which I wrote them, I felt that some of the themes, it's not just about love and loss, but also about the type of relationships, like narcissism, for example, which is something that you hear a lot about these days, even though they have existed for so long. And that's very much present in my song Listless, because it talks about that time where I basically didn't have an identity, right? And it's about reclaiming that identity and learning that you have to walk in your own strength
Yeah.
and you have to be confident enough um, to just say no.
Yes.
This is enough, and I need to be healthy for myself before I can, pour out anything into the world.
Absolutely.
As they say.
I almost get a little bit too excited when I hear the word narcissism because I feel like a lot of empathetic, caring people, maybe not everyone in the world will see different sides of people, but I think if you have a very loving heart, a lot of loving people tend to have engaged with narcissists. So I can understand the pain that came from that experience. And so speaking of
Antoine.
lessons though, what would you tell your younger self about your experience in the industry in terms of what advice would you give if you could give a heads up to your younger self about what the music industry is like?
Um, that is a very good question because um, I'm actually grateful for having had my mother guide me part of the way for preparing what I would have experienced in the music industry. But if I had to tell my younger self, which way to follow and what kind of advice I would give, I would have to say that basically you want to develop yourself and your skill as much as possible, but don't keep your expectations so high that it clouds your vision. Um, and it makes you accept negative behaviors and promises from people who not are not so inclined to keep them. There are a lot of business relationships that fall apart because people they can't hold their own end
Yeah.
of the bargain. And I think it's more of the realization that you have to have a huge amount of self-awareness and be guarded and guided against people who don't have your best interests at heart, you
Yes.
know. So I wouldn't discourage myself from pursuing my younger self from pursuing music or getting involved in the music industry, but I would say to remain steadfast and headstrong, um, and to learn as much as possible. Um, Even though I'm at the point that I'm at right now, I would still say learn as much as possible. Never give up because there were points when I knew that I gave up because I wasn't sure which direction I was going in for a long time. But that passion was always there.
Yes, but definitely that direction involves a global stage because I know your message of healing is something that you want to impress upon everyone, no matter what their background is. So do you have a strategy in mind in terms of how you will continue to expand your platform for that global recognition?
Well, it's a theme that I'm exploring right now, actually, because I would definitely like to take my performances out of Trinidad and Tobago. So I'm exploring the avenues that I can take to do so. It is taking some time, but I figure while I'm coming up with the content for my social media pages, I could explore different themes. Well, the different themes that relate to the music on the EP, for example. Also, I have continued songwriting, so um, with each new song that I perform or showing part of the creation process, I hope to gain enough traction that people want to experience us live and understanding where I'm coming from. Because if I had to compare myself with other artists, I would say Lana Del Rey is one that I've been fascinated with. Not because I know all of her songs or anything like that, but it's just that everyone has a niche, and her niche has been people who relate to her music because of the shared experiences. And while the messages may be different on my part, it's something that I intend to do where I'm sure that people really understand where I'm coming from, and there are no limits to where the healing can go.
Exactly. And so as you do this, do you foresee yourself changing anything about your brand or your writing or the kind of genres that you explore in your music?
Absolutely. While I may not make any hard shifts, but it may happen depending on the opportunities that come. I would say that for example, the songs on my first EP, because I have another one that's coming out hopefully by the end of the year. Um, those songs would have reflected experiences that I've had from when I was much younger in my teens, going and in my 20s. Now my writing style has slightly shifted to include a more matured perspective. And so I believe that the more mature audiences would appreciate it, and it actually may have a wider appeal as well. And I really think that in terms of the genre, there are so many that I've um, explored by itself, but in terms of combining the different, styles in my own music, I am just excited to see what I come up with next because I never really know until I get in the zone, to tell you the truth. Even when I get in the studio, I may not always know what I'm going to do. I'll just show up and, whatever flows, that's what you hear.
Okay, so speaking of what's next, can you give any teasers on what projects you're working on currently?
Well, I've written two songs for the year so far, and I performed both of them at my last show, which was around Easter. And I we have made a decision to include them in the second EP, which originally wasn't part of the plan, but my producer was so inspired. He's also in my band, The Eclectic Norm, and so it's something we'll be actively pursuing. The first one was a song that I wrote as a sort of letter to my mother who passed away. And really, it's really just expressing my feelings, everything that I've gone through since her passing and dealing with it. Um, so it's for those people who can relate to that, and it's just beautiful and it's magical. And the other song is a little bit more hard hitting, also emotionally charged, but it has to do with the societal ills that we experience in Trinidad and Tobago, along with the incessant bushfires and smoke and really bad air quality conditions that we're experiencing with the smoke and Sahara dust combination. So it's very metaphorical, but it's also hard hitting, and I'm really looking forward to that because I suppose as a self-proclaimed idealist, I don't believe in picking a side when it comes to politics. I just want people to unite, but we have to be able to identify with the real issues and see it for what it is, because
Yeah.
that's who I am as a person. I just call it as I see it. And I really hope that it will resonate with a lot of people when they are exposed to the song. Because I can say from that very first performance, it was electrifying and people were hands down, resonating with it.
And I definitely feel like that radical honesty is a core part of who you are as an artist. So on that note,
Definitely.
would you like to say any parting words in terms of what message would you tell to people out there who are dealing with any health condition, emotional, psychological pain, in terms of giving them hope and a sense that healing is possible?
I would say never stop looking for something that can help you keep track of what works and what doesn't work. Rely on the support of your family and friends, of course, those who are willing to support you, and to show that love for yourself, because a lot of us, we don't really acknowledge who we truly are and love ourselves in spite of whatever we're not happy with. And we'll be amazed at how much can come from that alone in terms of healing ourselves. um, One of the things I do that I would like to share is, to just sit with yourself. Don't beat yourself up, but sit with yourself in a meditative state where you can acknowledge things for what they are and make it easier to set goals for moving forward in life and dealing with the difficulties as they come.